She prefers to be called She, short for Shiko, which is short for Wanjiko Kang'ethe. She battled through a toxic workspace. The Wellbeing Coach founded Toxic Workspaces, a company or platform where she offers change management consultancy. And for she is big on rest. So rest assured, the journalist and photographer will give you a good picture of her story. And some stories end up in court, and that is where we bring in Ambrose Waigwa Ndong'o, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He is a senior associate at CM Advocates and is an employment law expert, having done 5 years in the field. He is also a consultant at HR Flick, which is a digital HR services provider. His submissions had better be on Flick. But he is not the only advocate of the High Court of Kenya here. Jacqueline Mugo, who is the CEO of the Federation of Kenya Employers, is a trained lawyer with expertise in employment and labor relations, and her own labor relations began in court, with her first job being a magistrate. Mugo is a board member at the International Labour Organization ILO and is also the regional vice president for Africa at the International Organization of Employers IOE. And for the government position, we have Dr. Musa Nyandusi, the head of the Ministry of Labour's Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services, DOSH. And he's a doc, a medical one, specifically an ear, nose and throat surgeon. He also sits on the board of the National Industrial Training Authority, NITA, representing the Principal Secretary for Labour. Court is in session. Justice Wanjiko presiding, Your Honour. Have you heard of bosses who act as though they are your owner? Work environments that are nothing close to decent or dignifying. Toxic workspaces manifest in various ways. There is the saying that people don't leave jobs, they leave bad bosses because you go to work and get worked. We bring this emotive matter before this honorable court today.
My story started from when I joined the workplace. So 2018, I joined this workplace. It was my dream job, honestly. The first time I went for the interview, someone just asked me, "Are you sure about this place?" That was really awkward. But then I didn't have a good job before. So I thought maybe they're trying to scare me away. So I took it anyway. The orientation process was beautiful, honestly. Like, why you should work here, why, we are there, everything. That was really good until the first month at work when everybody's masks peeled off. Here were the rules. Leave your emotions at the door. Didn't make sense what that meant. But then I discovered there was something missing. I wasn't sure that was my place. I started feeling left out of place right from the start. So there were groupies at work. And then they will show me that they don't want me. So I was part of a certain team. We were 15. So the 15 guys at work really made me think like I was not good enough. But I later discovered that was a team dynamic. So they're always fighting each other because every time when I joined, 3 people were leaving. When I was there, other people were also leaving. So I didn't understand. I thought they were getting better jobs, honestly. Only to realize, oh, okay, this is why you're leaving. So that the dynamic of the team, the guys who remained at work were the gatekeepers. Now I can call them gatekeepers. So their work was to ensure that they frustrate you till you leave. So 2 years later, actually not 2, I didn't even last 2 years in that job. It got so bad to the point that I got depressed, but I didn't know it was depression, honestly. I just thought I was not okay. I was always tired. I always woke up in the morning and I'm like, ugh, I have to deal with this again. So that was every time someone would ask me, how are you? I'm like, ugh, is there another way? Like I could just escape this workplace. So the toxicity was so crazy that I think I had to always remember that I signed a contract that I cannot speak about by experience. The worst thing is I never took a break while at work. Because I thought if I take a break, my manager will tell me, hey, so these people will say that you're not competent. You may go, then someone will come, you'll get your job. So I was afraid of losing my job. Yet I was really doing my best at work. Because even the people who I would look up to never would take breaks. I actually discovered wine because of that job. Because everybody at work would leave and they will go get drunk. And I'm like, is this because it's fun or you can afford it? Kumbe everybody was dealing with stress differently. I became a different person. I couldn't really even see myself. I started having quarrels with my family, my friends, but I was just crying for help, but I didn't know what was going on. I would cry myself to sleep. It doesn't really make sense that a dream job ended up really like traumatizing me to that point. So even at work, I developed a very bad habit where I will start second guessing myself. So even when I will do something, I had to ask like 10 people. So now, later I realized, oh, this is how, like, that's how that dark space for me was. Like, I never trusted my own guts, my own thoughts. I never trusted myself. You know, when you see yourself through other people, I'm like, I know where you're going to go, and I don't think I'm strong enough as your friend to hold you when you're at that point. So, you sure you... So that's what I do. I can't believe that. I feel like the guys who were hitting on me at that time, when I was in a toxic workspace, I was just like, hey, but now I feel like, I'm like, okay, now we can speak. That's a change. Even friendships as well. There's no Waishe friendship. It's, so what do you plan to do with your current situation? I think now I'm in spaces where we have real conversations then with the question of what's the solution or what are you planning to do about it. So it has changed the relationship I have with myself, with others, and I feel like overall it's really, I think I'm in a good space.
Your Honor, let's get a deeper dive into what a toxic work environment is. What are the signs of a toxic work environment? We get some insights from Bright Amande Kenya, which is a recruitment and HR services platform. First is bad managers. They think they are smarter and better than everyone else, bully everyone that does not submit to their wishes, harass anyone freely, narcissistic, condescending, manipulative, take credit for other people's work. Second is poor communication. This is misleading information, no communication at all, indirect communication, and withholding information. Third is low staff morale. There is hardly any joy in the working environment. The staff are gloomy. Tension in the environment. Lack of enthusiasm for work. Always looking for the next opportunity. Then next, we have chronic physical and emotional illnesses. One is expected to show up at work even when unwell, and staff are constantly sick and or touchy and moody. Then we have inconsistent policies where you find staff are encouraged to tweak the truth to meet expectations, or management bends policies and rules to accommodate certain people. Now, we also have disgruntlement among employees where you have their needs not being considered, their grievances remain unaddressed. There are also constant complaints on the same issues which remain unaddressed. Your Honor, the reality of these silent sufferings is deeply unfortunate. What does the law say about this? This honorable court will now hear from Brian Moshiri.
My lords, ladies, so many wrongs committed against rights. Vulnerable people are taken advantage of. They are left to be victims of egos, bearing the weight of inhumane thumping by seniors. Let's hear from a lawyer.
The law does not define what a toxic work environment is, but case law has defined what a toxic work environment is, and it includes a couple of things. It includes a hostile environment. It includes an environment where there is sexual harassment. It includes an environment where there is gaslighting, or an environment where employees feel that their self-esteem and dignity is being taken away day by day. One recourse is the internal dispute resolution recourse, and the second recourse is the court direction. In the first recourse, the employee is supposed to speak to their direct supervisor. They are supposed to speak to their HR manager and also speak to their overall manager. That is depending on whether the matter needs to be escalated. In all those cadres, the employee is supposed to keep proper records and write emails write WhatsApp messages, put it in writing in form of letters, so that eventually, if there will be need to go to court, there will be evidence. If there will be no evidence in court, the court will deem that the employee condoned that behavior and they will not be paid whatever damages they would have been paid. The second route, the court route, is when you have tried all those internal dispute resolution mechanisms and they have failed, then you are required to resign and indicate that the reason for your resignation is a toxicity. That way, the court can find that you are constructively dismissed. Constructive dismissal is a situation, again, where you resign, not out of your own volition, but out of the necessity which has been created by a toxic work environment. But I must insist again that every case will turn on its own circumstances and the level of evidence provided by the employee. So that, again, if the employee has provided good evidence and if the employee has very good grounds, they have no reason to fear that they will spend a lot on a case and lose. If you are working at a place and it became toxic and you left through that process we have called constructive dismissal, where you resigned involuntarily, you have 3 years to file suit. After that, your suit becomes statute barred. The law considers 3 years to be reasonable time because 1, litigation has to come to an end, and 2, suits do not have to hover over people's head like the sword of Damocles forever.
The law is very clear, has been repeated more times than the truth has been felt. But is the path to justice as clear? Do the things the legal experts say reflect in the offices, the corridors, the workshops, and everywhere else that work is to be done? I rest.
Before we let this matter rest, let's bring in employers to respond to the concerns of this honorable court.
It is true that the corporate world, there's harassment, there's unfairness. These are realities that are there. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I think it takes both parties to then agree on the kind of work environment that they want, and the employer provides the lead by putting in place the policies, the procedures for dispute resolution, making it clear that this is not acceptable behavior in this company, that people are to be managed in a way that treats them with respect. And if there are cases where these standards are flouted, then there is transparency and fairness, and people feel safe enough to come forward to raise these issues. The unfortunate reality is that most employees do run into problems, but they don't report. So if it's hidden, if you're too shy or too embarrassed or for whatever reason you're afraid, you don't report it, that the employer cannot take action. But the level of toxicity in an organization depends on the people. They must have a situation where you decide to create the right environment. And really, the tone starts at the top, because if the CEO in the organization or the MD, whatever the title is of the person at the top, sends a clear message that these are the values of this organization, you have policies and procedures, you have avenues for redress, you have grievance handling procedures in place, then there is a process to deal with these matters. So it may sound utopian, but it's what we do every day, resolving conflicts at the workplace in a way that is win-win for both parties. Where that fails, we end up in court. We're dealing with a very stressed group of people. We're dealing with mental health issues. We're dealing with drug and substance abuse. And employers are having to take the initiative to go beyond the norm to see how to support employees. So we haven't actually seen a lot of disputes in this area dealing with toxicity instead. And I have dealt with those kinds of issues in the corporate world, where a manager has a style of management that is, it's basically bullying. That person is going through bullying, and it's not one of the things that we start with. There should be a feedback system in the organization. In my view, the problem is not the law. The problem is the implementation, the compliance with the law. The capacity of DOSH and the Ministry of Labor as a whole to carry out inspections and to do awareness training to employers, because this is their role. The FK does it, but really it is the government that is supposed to help employers and corporates, NGOs, to understand what is required of them, and employees also to understand their rights. So it is the compliance and the implementation where there's a gap. We cannot keep throwing laws at problems. These laws sit in statutes unless they come alive.
Your Honor, let's now get the submissions of the state. And on this, I call to the stand Dr. Musa Nyandusi, the head of the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services in the Ministry of Labor, to take to the stand. How aware is the government of this situation in terms of officially? Do you receive any kind of reports or complaints?
Your Honor, the government is quite aware about the presence of toxic workplaces and potentially toxic workplaces. And you may be aware that Kenya is a member of good standing of the International Labour Organization and signatory to quite a number of conventions that are ascribed to the issues of safe work environments, in essence, the avoidance of toxic work environments. And we do have legislations in place that specifically deal with this issue.
The legislations in place, there is the feeling that they are heavily skewed towards workers in an industrial space, you know, those who work in factories and the likes. However, like you've said, there's a growing concern about the toxic environment. It feels like there's not enough of this being addressed legally or from government.
Most of the injuries seemed to only emanate from industrial settings. That's where we came from. And the only safety at work legislation was the Factories Act, which reflected the fact that the belief that the unsafe workplaces can only be in manufacturing settings. In 2007, in moving with the international labor practice and standards and what is ascribed by the country, we formed the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which means all workplaces are recognized as having the potential to give a toxic, what you're calling a toxic work environment. What we call them unsafe work environments or hazardous work environments. And then you can define the hazards in the various forms that we do. So this legislation recognizes all workplaces, and of course, in recognizing all workplaces, expands the hazards to include even mental health as a challenge and a hazard. One of the things which I really need to bring out is that there's a shared responsibility. Safety and health is not a responsibility that is placed on the employer to give the employee. It's a responsibility which is shared, because a lot of times one may not know the stone in your shoe if you don't make somebody aware of the stone. One of the biggest places where the entire world is grappling with is the issue of mental health. And I think you even see it among our defense forces, we see it among and in all our workspaces we can see it.
Now I want to move to the point where, say, the investigation has been done from your end, and be it 30 days or otherwise, and my employer is found culpable. What then? What are the repercussions?
There are places where you will find outright unsafe and life-threatening work environments. You do have, the law gives you the latitude to actually cause what we call a prohibition notice. A notice of prohibition is a notice that actually stops the operations of enterprises or sections of enterprises where you have clearly life-threatening hazardous conditions. But a lot of workplaces do have workspaces where you can work with the enterprise towards improving their workplaces. 85% of our workers are actually people who are working in the informal sector. And whereas we can have all the programs where government can do ABCD, sometimes it's even a family business. It can be your own farm, your own agricultural entity, your own wholesale shop, M-Pesa shop. Ultimately, the idea is that there needs to be an encouragement as a people for us to embrace the issue of safety and health.
Thank you very much, Dr. for speaking to us and for making your submissions to this court.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
When the place you make your bread and butter is the place in dignity is bred and you're buttered, the protester in you becomes a non-starter. You want to speak up, but you can hardly master even just a starter. That bad boss, senior sinner, team leader turned dream killer, preaches the gospel of we are a team, but the team is as broken as your esteem, your sanity, your sanctity. It takes your person, your pride, progression, and stops it, digging your grave as it digs into you. It's brutal and toxic. They put you down, yet they should be holding you down. They build a dam on your path and hope you drown. People keep praying for you, but they of the toxic culture keep preying on you, knowing they won't get caught because they know the who's who, and you are the who's not. Your Honor, that's how it is. You be the judge in this news court.